Recently, I was given another opportunity to check out an early version of Outward 2. This is an alpha demo that lets us spawn in the town of Haboob and explore the region. I thought there were a lot of really cool things to come out of this playtime. I also did feel a tad frustrated from time to time. Because some features are not implemented in such an early version of the game, combat leads to you dying 80% of the time. This was clearly meant to show off the world and some story elements, more so than letting you fight anything and everything. Here are the 10 most notable pros that I noticed, as well as the 10 most obvious cons you should be aware of. Magic is back, and it's got a lot to offer. You can run through 2 dungeons, skipping the enemies, to reach a massive outcropping of crystals. Inside is a ley line where you can trade stamina and health for mana. There's also a skill tree here, granting passive mana regen and offering a few skills based around lanterns being used in combat. When exploring, you will run into more powerful monsters that you aren't yet equipped to combat. It is intended for you to avoid certain encounters until you find better equipment. However, I found that if you happen to gain enemy attention, it is far too difficult to avoid a confrontation. Enemies can easily match your speed and never seem to lose aggro even if you manage to get a good distance away. The best part of this experience was checking out the world itself. Haboob is a region shrouded under a set of gigantic trees. It's teeming with plant life and various creatures. This has me very excited to see other regions as well. The terrain is much more interesting to traverse compared to the flat plains we saw in Outward 1. Lots of colors, architecture's grand and stands out. Absolutely beautiful world to explore. With Outward 2 being a sequel, we're getting a lot of new things. Items, stats, weapons, skills, all kinds of stuff. I was a bit disappointed by the lack of info on most mechanics present. Skills don't tell you how much mana they cost. Armor sets have no stats at all. A few items had no icons. Obviously, this is all due to it being in the alpha stages. But it did dampen the time played, as a lot of new stuff just wasn't really usable to a certain degree. We now have a few cutscenes added to more immerse the player in the new story, and I have to say, this is pretty incredible. Not normally a guy to like cutscenes, as they tend to get in the way of gameplay, which is the most important part of a game. However, for an RPG, these were really good ways to give you a feel for the world and its overall setting. An introduction plays showing off the town of Haboob as you get into the game. You also get an extremely interesting scene after sleeping in your bed where a man frames you for murder and gets you kicked out of town. These show a lot of promise, and I really hope there's at least one cutscene for each starting town. My favorite part of Outward was always the combat. While many people find it clunky, I love how effectively I can use skills and weapon combos to stagger monsters or exploit their weakness to great effect. Outward 2 combat is, I would say, borderline unplayable at the moment. The stamina system is far too strict, not allowing you to do much at all before you're sitting there taking a beating with no way to fight back. Foods and potions for stamina buffs are not easy enough to come by, leading to a negative experience when fighting unless you cheese stuff with guns or magic. With a more fleshed out crafting system, this could likely go away entirely, but in its current state I felt far too restricted when it came to stamina. There are a bunch of different weapon types to try out, which give you many different ways to interact with the gameplay. I really liked a new ribbon weapon, a whip-like item that can attack fast and at good range. I am worried because the iron chakram was a melee weapon and not magic-based, which is disappointing, but pistols don't need skills to fire anymore, can be reloaded while moving, and deal crazy damage still. Bows are awesome for long-range combat, but I was not able to move at all while pulling back an arrow, which is a bit off-putting. Oh, and the shield deals crazy stagger when shield bashing. Felt like a great tool to create openings. A new debuff you can acquire after dying is the Sprained Ankle. This completely removes your ability to sprint and slows your dodge roll. This, in my opinion, ruins the experience and should definitely have been looked at before this was sent out for people to play. It cannot be cured with anything, and it lasts forever. Technically, it lasts 4 full days, but sleeping pauses the timer, which I have to assume is unintended. I contracted this on all 4 characters I made, and it will make you quit. Not being able to run slows the game down to a crawl and feels far too punishing. Largely, this is because there's no cure for it at the current time, but also, I'm not sure I like such a major debuff unless it's easily treatable. Dual wielding feels way better than I expected. It lets you equip any one-handed weapon in either hand, opening up so many options like shield plus ribbon, double sword, mace and dagger. There are so many different loadout options, if I can call it that. All weapons also have several combos that they can do. Press the attack button, does something different, then hold the attack button. The book is wide open for combat, allowing what great variety was included in the first game to be even further expanded. The new map we are given is kinda frustrating. You'll need to find a map or be given one before it even becomes a feature. Once opened, it's actually stunning. Looks incredible with so much detail. Well, the extreme level of detail actually makes it very difficult to read at times. If you get going, find your way well, and can recognize landmarks around the map, it works perfectly. But should you die, which, it's Outward, you're going to, and be spawned in a weird spot, you often get completely lost. More time spent looking at the map and exploring helps a lot. But even then, I think adding actual map markers for main locations like we had in Outward would do wonders. As it is now, you just kinda look at random buildings and get disappointed when they aren't a town. Haboob is the only starting town we can explore in this version, and I have to say it feels much more like a town than Outward ever had. The city has staircases, corridors filled with NPCs, several hospitality rooms, and merchant shops. Feels more similar to a Skyrim town, where everything is busy and there's actually something to explore. Also very similar to how Harmattan felt in Outward 1, but expanded upon. As you start a character, you can select stats that change each run. These are a pretty cool Divinity-like idea for those who played that game, but it wasn't noticeable enough how the traits actually affected each character's gameplay. What exactly is willpower? By how much does +1 constitution affect my stats? More info would be very helpful. Movement, in general, feels more than solid. I would say combat is greatly improved by you feeling much more in control over your character. Feeling the weight of each hit against your enemies needs taking another look at, but how your character controls feels very smooth. I really have a strong dislike for the new sleep screen. It's now a clock with some strange design in the background. Finding out exactly when it's day or night is extremely difficult with this new system and often wastes much more time than it should. Adding a sun or moon to the background could be an easy fix, but the current design really doesn't fit and is far less intuitive than Outward's version. Skill trees once again have a lot of options. The one in your starting town has great passives and solid abilities to enhance your combat prowess. The second skill tree at the ley line had more magical type damage options that made use of the lantern and sigils, which is a cool idea, letting you also interact with co-op play that should definitely be more prevalent in this sequel. Outward's biggest hurdle was always how quickly it would turn people away. Get into the adventure, build crafting, or even story, and it's an amazing experience. However, the early game is so brutal of a learning curve that it pushed many players away. Outward 2 is actually even worse in this regard. The early hours of your character are unbearably strict. Even checking out a small encampment off to the side of the road can lead to you dying in only 2 hits. It almost feels like you need to play full stealth for a few hours before starting major combat, and that's not going to resonate with most people, I don't think. Character customization has a lot more options, including beards that original Outward players were pretty excited about. The character model is much more pleasing to the eye, which, yeah, that's a nice change. This region was extremely neat to explore for the first time. That being said, there wasn't much to actually go do. All the other towns or encampments were filled with NPCs who offered nothing, and had merchants who sold only a few new things. As for dungeons or caves to explore, there's almost none. I went through a cave filled with ghosts that I couldn't fight since they don't take any physical damage. Then I went through a trog den where a special mage instantly killed me 3 separate times with 1 poison attack. Finally, on the other side, I made my way to the ley line cave where there were a few magic beasts to take down. That's it, and all 3 of those things are on the right side of the map. Exploring the left part, there was not really anything to check out. NPC interactions feel much more involved and like real conversations. You get several different dialogue options to select through for each important NPC. Oliel is a returning character I was really glad to see. You can tell her you're being framed and she'll actually help you out by offering directions and granting you a tent. There was also a giant on the road that you could follow to town, which I thought was pretty cool, though he doesn't know how to stop walking when you speak with him, which was kind of funny, honestly. Death scenarios are back and once again very unique. However, it's often possible to respawn next to an aggressive enemy and die before you can even get up. This leads to multiple deaths, items lost like tents, and frustration. The scenarios are often pretty interesting, like Gep is back and he leaves you a potion for wounds again. But any of the negative scenarios just lead to you dying twice in a row before you can react. Overall, I had a really fun time with this alpha version of Outward 2. I am very excited to see what is to come. This version of the game is clearly unfinished. Armor sets don't have stats, some items don't even have icons or descriptions, curing certain ailments isn't possible, stamina far too difficult to keep up, and it does have small performance issues, especially after you die. There were several problems that made me not want to jump back into the game again. However, all of them are because this is an alpha, and stuff just isn't ready for heavy playtime, so I wouldn't take that criticism too heavily. I almost feel as if we were meant to check out the main town, see how cool the world looks, and call it a day. Co-op does look very promising based on my solo experience, so that's pretty good news. Thank you so much to 9dots for letting me check this out. Can't wait to experience more Outward 2 in the future. Oh, and by the way, I found a way to infinitely dupe silver already, so might want to look into that. Comment down below what you guys enjoyed the most about this new footage. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.